7 years ago, the blind millionaire dined alone until the little daughter of the housekeeper did the impossible. Subscribe to the channel and comment where you are watching from. The rain tapped on the windows of the mansion in the Sion neighborhood like impatient fingers, but Leonard Vance didn't even notice. At 52 years old, exactly 7 years submerged in darkness, he had developed a routine as precise as a metronome. It was 6:45 p.m. when his footsteps echoed through the Carrara marble hallway, mentally counting each step to the dining room. 23 steps from the staircase, turn left, 12. More steps to the high-backed chair. "Mr. Vance, dinner is served," announced Mrs. Johnson, the housekeeper who had worked in the house for 15 years. Her voice carried the same respectful and distant tone as always, a result of years spent with an employer who had turned silence into his main companion. "Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. You may leave," he replied, settling into the head of the rosewood table that seated 12, but had hosted only one solitary dinner for years. The aroma of shepherd's pie rose to his nostrils, but Leonard ate mechanically, more out of necessity than pleasure. The Austrian clock on the wall marked time with its metallic, constant ticking, a sound that had become his only company during meals. That clock had belonged to his father, John Vance, an immigrant who had built a biotechnology empire starting from a small pharmacy in downtown San Francisco. "Time is the only asset we cannot buy back, my son," the old John used to say. Now, ironically, time seemed suspended in Leonard's life. His mind wandered to the accident that changed everything. It was a March morning in 2017, and he was inspecting a new production line at the factory in Oakland when an explosion in the chemical sector hit him squarely. Glass shards and chemicals burned his cornea irreparably. The man who led meetings with a firm hand and saw opportunities where others saw obstacles now navigated life through touch, hearing, and a memory that had become his main tool for work. "Sir, may I come in?" Mrs. Johnson's voice interrupted his melancholic thoughts. "Speak," Leonard said, without lifting his head from the plate. "It's about the housekeeper starting tomorrow, Angela. She comes highly recommended by the neighborhood. She worked for Mrs. Marina for 5 years without any issues." Leonard sighed. In recent months, 3 housekeepers had passed through the house, and all had left the job claiming that the boss was too difficult to deal with. He knew his personality had become too harsh, but he couldn't help it. Every misplaced sound, every misaligned piece of furniture, every broken routine represented a threat to the fragile balance he had built to survive in his lightless world. "Make the rules clear to her, Mrs. Johnson. Nothing can be moved without my permission. The Braille books in the library must not be touched. The office is off limits. And, especially," he paused, taking a deep breath, "no unnecessary conversation. I pay for work, not for company." "Yes, sir. She comes at 7 in the morning." After Mrs. Johnson left, Leonard remained seated, listening to the storm outside intensify. The southern wind, typical of autumn in San Francisco, whistled through the leaves of the jacaranda trees that adorned the garden. When he could still see, he loved to contemplate those century-old trees his father had planted when he bought the property. The mansion was an example of colonial architecture, with 3 floors and 15 rooms. The ground floor housed the living room, library, dining room, kitchen and office. The second floor contained 4 suites, including the master where Leonard had slept alone for years. The third floor, which had once served as a recreation area with a game room and home theater, had been closed since the accident. Too many memories of a life that no longer existed. He stood up from the table with precise movements. He had memorized every detail of the house, the exact height of the staircase steps, 7 inches each, the texture of the jacaranda handrail, the distance between the furniture. His nightly routine was unchanging. Go upstairs to the bedroom, turn on the radio to a classical music station, and mentally review the financial reports that his accountant, Dr. Adams, had read in the morning. Vance Biotech continued to thrive under his remote leadership. He led meetings via video conference, approved investments over the phone, and made decisions based solely on detailed reports that his employees read word for word. His photographic memory, now auditory, processed numbers, percentages, and projections with a precision that impressed even his competitors. In the bedroom, he sat in the leather armchair by the window. The rain continued to pour, and he could distinguish the sound of water flowing through the gutters from the sound of raindrops hitting the leaves in the garden. This type of heightened perception had developed naturally after the accident, a cruel compensation that nature offered to those deprived of sight. His mind inevitably drifted to Caroline, his goddaughter and only heir. The daughter of his late younger brother, Peter, she had gradually taken on various administrative responsibilities within the company. She graduated in business administration from Stanford University and held a master's degree in business management. At 35 years old, Caroline was efficient, punctual, and demonstrated an impressive knowledge of the family business. However, Leonard sensed a coldness in her bi-weekly visits that deeply unsettled him. "Uncle, the first quarter numbers are excellent. We managed to increase our profit margin by 12%, she had said during her last visit, her voice filled with professional satisfaction but devoid of any familial warmth. Their relationship had always been cordial but distant. After Peter's death in a car accident when Caroline was 20, Leonard had taken on the responsibility of guiding her professionally. She had proven to be a dedicated pupil, absorbing knowledge about biotechnology and management with impressive veracity. However, since Leonard's accident, something had changed in their dynamic. The clock on the side table marked 10:30 p.m. when he finally prepared himself for sleep. Tomorrow would be just another day identical to the last 2,555 days since the accident. The same routine, the same sounds, the same absences. The arrival of the new housekeeper would represent just another variable to be controlled in his meticulously organized world. As the rain finally subsided outside, Leonard Vance fell asleep without imagining that in the next 8 hours his life would be visited by someone who would forever transform the deafening silence of his existence, someone so small and special that she would be able to see, through her own difficulty in communication, the trapped soul of a man who had forgotten how to connect with the world. The alarm clock rang at exactly 6 a.m., as it had every day for the past 7 years. Leonard extended his right arm exactly 45 centimeters to reach the device on the nightstand, a distance he knew by heart. His morning routine was a sacred ritual. 15 minutes of stretching, a 20-minute shower, breakfast at 7:15 a.m. Nothing could break this sequence that kept him sane and productive. At 7:05, while shaving with the precision of a watchmaker, he heard the doorbell. Angela, the new housekeeper, had arrived punctually. Through the slightly open bathroom window, he could catch fragments of the conversation between her and Mrs. Johnson in the front yard. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mrs. Johnson. I know he is quite strict. Mr. Leonard values organization highly. He lost his sight in an accident and developed a very specific routine. If you follow the rules strictly, you won't have any problems." Angela's voice sounded mature, respectful, with a typical accent from rural California. Leonard mentally calculated that she must be between 35 and 40 years old. There was something comforting in her tone, different from the nervous haste of the other housekeepers who had worked in the house. "I completely understand. I've worked with special needs individuals before," Angela replied with genuine naturalness. He went down for breakfast at exactly 7:15 a.m. In the dining room, he found the table set with his usual precision. Coffee cup 5 centimeters from the right edge, plate with 2 slices of whole grain bread 10 centimeters from the E, cup, jar of blackberry jam from Santa Clara Farm in the center. Details that might seem obsessive to others, but for Leonard represented safety and control. "Good morning, Mr. Leonard," Angela greeted him as he entered the room. Her voice carried a calmness that surprised him. There was no nervousness or excessive deference. "Good morning. Did Mrs. Johnson explain the rules?" "Yes, sir. May I start with the living room? I plan to do a thorough cleaning of the furniture today." Leonard nodded and focused on his breakfast. Angela moved away with light, almost silent steps. For the next hour, while he mentally reviewed the financial reports he would discuss with Dr. Adams at 9 a.m., he noticed that the noises coming from the living room were different. There was no hurry or abrupt movements. Each object seemed to be treated with special care, as if she understood that in this house everything had its sacred place. At 9 a.m., Dr. Adams arrived with military punctuality. Adams was the Vance family's accountant for 20 years, a meticulous 58-year-old man who knew every cent of Leonard's fortune. His slow, didactic voice had become the link between the businessman and the world of numbers. "Leonard, we have excellent news. The research lab in Riverside has registered 3 new patents this month. Caroline handled the licensing negotiations masterfully," Adams reported, opening the folder with the documents. While listening to the monthly revenue figures, an 8% growth compared to the same period last year, Leonard noticed a strange noise coming from the library. A soft sound, almost imperceptible, as if someone were slowly flipping through pages. "Adams, excuse me for a moment," he interrupted, furrowing his brow. He stood up with determination and headed toward the library, counting his steps automatically. 8 steps to the door, turn the bronze doorknob, 6 more steps to the center of the room. But something was different. There was a presence there, small and silent. "Who is in the library?" he asked in a firm but not aggressive voice. Silence, just the almost inaudible rustling of pages being turned. "I know someone is here. Angela, are you in the library?" A sound of quick footsteps came from the hallway. "Mr. Leonard, I apologize. It's my daughter, Lily. She came with me today because I had no one to leave her with. Her school is on break." Leonard felt a mix of irritation and curiosity. No child had stepped foot in that house in the last 7 years. His routine was being disrupted, but something about the situation intrigued him. "How old is she?" 7 years old, sir. She's very well behaved. I promise she won't be a bother. Lily, come here, sweetheart." What happened next caught Leonard completely off guard. Instead of running footsteps or a child quickly speaking to apologize, he heard only a soft movement, as if small, bare feet were gliding over the Persian rug. And then, the most surprising thing, he felt a small, warm hand lightly touch his right hand. "Lily has speech difficulties, Mr. Leonard. She communicates more through gestures and, well, she has a special way of talking to people." The girl said nothing, but her hand remained on Leonard's for a few seconds. It was a delicate touch, fearless, as if she were trying to convey some silent message. For the first time in years, he felt genuinely curious about another person. "What was she doing with my books?" "She's fascinated by the little dots in the books," Angela explained, embarrassed. "Lily doesn't yet know what Braille is, but she runs her fingers over the pages as if she is trying to understand something." Leonard bent down to be at the girl's height. He could feel her light breath and noticed that she smelled of glycerin soap and chamomile shampoo. "Lily, do you know what these dots in the books are?" The answer came. Unexpectedly, the girl took his hand and guided it to an open page, pressing his fingers against the raised dots. It was as if she wanted him to read to her, not realizing that those were exactly the eyes he used to see. The words, "She's a special child, isn't she?" asked Leonard, his voice softer. "Very special," confirmed Angela with evident maternal pride. "Lily has a condition that affects her speech, but she sees the world in a unique way. Sometimes I think she notices things we can't even imagine." At that moment, something extraordinary happened. Lily took Leonard's hand again and guided it to her own face, as if she wanted him to see her through touch. Her features were delicate, with curly hair and round cheeks typical of her age, and when she smiled, Leonard felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time, a genuine human connection devoid of any interest. "She can stay in the library while you work," he said, surprising himself, "but be careful with the books." "Sir, are you sure? I can find another place for her." "No need, Lily. Do you like stories?" The girl clapped her hands softly twice, apparently her way of saying yes. "Then she can stay. There are many storybooks here." When he returned to continue the meeting with Dr. Adams, Leonard carried a strange sensation. For the first time in 7 years, his home didn't feel completely silent. There was new life circulating through the hallways, a tiny but powerful energy that began to awaken something dormant in his heart, hardened by loneliness. Throughout the rest of the morning, while discussing investments and business strategies, his attention was divided between the numbers and the small noises coming from the library. Lily was discovering her world of books with the same enchantment he himself had felt in the first months after the accident, when Braille had become his window to words. Unbeknownst to him, Leonard Vance had just opened the first crack in the wall he had built around himself. 3. Weeks had passed since Angela and Lily arrived at the mansion, and Leonard's routine had undergone almost imperceptible but significant changes. At 10:30 a.m., after finishing business calls, he found himself paying attention to the sounds coming from the library. Lily had established her little territory there, always accompanied by a folder with sheets of paper and colored pencils that her mother brought. On that rainy Tuesday in April, Leonard decided to break his routine for the first time in years. Instead of heading straight to the office after his morning coffee, he walked to the library. Lily was there, as always, sitting on the Persian rug with her legs crossed. There was something different in the atmosphere, a serene energy he couldn't identify. "Good morning, Lily," he greeted, sitting in the leather armchair near the main bookshelf. The response came through 3 gentle taps on the wooden floor. Leonard had discovered that this was the girl's way of saying, "Good morning." Each interaction with her had become a kind of code deciphering, and he was surprised to realize that he looked forward to these little silent conversations. "What are you doing today?" Lily stood up and approached him, extending a sheet of paper. Leonard held the drawing between his fingers, trying to interpret through touch the pencil marks on the surface. He could feel curved lines, some areas where she had pressed the pencil harder, creating small reliefs. "Angela, can you tell me what Lily drew?" he asked when the woman appeared at the library door with a duster in her hands. "Oh, Mr. Leonard, it's a drawing of you sitting in this armchair, surrounded by books. She made you with a smile on your face," Angela explained, with a maternal tenderness in her voice. "Lily has been drawing you every day." The information touched him deeply. A 7-year-old child who barely knew him was portraying him smiling. When was the last time someone had seen or imagined him smiling? "Lily, would you like me to read you a story?" The girl clapped her hands twice, her enthusiastic yes. Leonard got up and went to the shelf where he kept the children's books that had belonged to Peter when he was a child. His fingers danced over the volumes until he found a Braille edition of The Little Prince that he had commissioned years ago. As he read, he noticed that Lily had settled on the floor very close to his armchair. Occasionally, she lightly touched his leg, as if she wanted to make sure he was still there. When he reached the part about the rose and its demands, he felt a different touch. Lily had placed her hand over his, interrupting the reading. "What is it, little one?" Lily stood up and ran out of the library. Leonard was confused, worried that he had said something inappropriate. But a few minutes later, she returned and pressed something into his hand, a small flower she had picked from the garden. It was a rosebud from the front yard, still damp from the morning rain. "She brought a rose to match the story," explained Angela, who was watching the scene from the door. "Lily has this ability to connect things in a way that, well, sometimes I think she understands more about the world than we imagine." That afternoon, after Angela and Lily left, Leonard found himself doing something unprecedented. He kept the small rose in a glass of water on his desk. The soft scent of the flower brought back memories of his childhood when he helped his mother, Mrs. Smith, care for the garden at the family home in Maplewood. The following Thursday, Lily brought news. Angela had told him that the girl had been excited all morning, keeping something special in her school backpack to show Mr. Leo, the affectionate nickname she had created for him, communicated through gestures. "For your mother. Mr. Leonard, Lily wants to show you something. It's about music," announced Angela when they arrived. Lily guided Leonard to the Steinway grand piano that occupied a corner of the living room. The instrument had been a wedding gift he had given to his late wife, Isabella. No one had played those keys since her death, 12 years ago. The piano was tuned. Leonard made it a point to have a tuner visit the house every 6 months, but it remained silent, like an unfulfilled promise. Lily climbed onto the piano bench and, to everyone's surprise, began to play. It wasn't complex chords, but a simple and touching melody that she seemed to have created. Her small fingers danced over the keys with impressive naturalness for a child who apparently had never had formal music lessons. "How did she learn this?" Leonard asked, genuinely astonished. "Lily has always had a knack for music," Angela explained with evident pride. "At the inclusive school she attends, the art teacher said she has perfect pitch. She can reproduce any melody she hears." The girl stopped playing and looked at Leonard, waiting for his reaction. He approached the piano and sat beside her on the bench. His hands, which hadn't touched the keys in years, found them almost instinctively. He began to play Für Elise by Beethoven, one of Isabella's favorite pieces. Lily listened in absolute silence, absorbing every note. When Leonard finished, she placed her little hands over his and began to reproduce the same melody, note for note, as if she had instantly memorized the entire performance. "My God," whispered Angela, "she has never played this music before." In that moment, Leonard understood he was witnessing something extraordinary. Lily not only had an exceptional musical talent, but she could connect with him through the universal language of music in a way that words never could. In the following days, music afternoons became part of the routine. Lily always arrived eager to play with Mr. Leo. She had created small compositions of her own, simple melodies, but filled with emotion that seemed to translate feelings for which she had no words. One of those melodies in particular touched Leonard's heart in a special way. It was a soft and melancholic tune that Lily played whenever she sensed he was sad. She had developed an incredible sensitivity to pick up on his emotional states through small signals, the rhythm of his breathing, the way he walked, even how he held objects. "How does she know when I'm sad?" he asked Angela one afternoon. "Lily has always been this way. Since she was little, she reads people differently. I think because she doesn't speak like other children. She developed other ways to understand the world and people." This revelation made Leonard reflect deeply on his own journey. Just as Lily had developed alternative ways of communication, he himself had learned to navigate the world through other senses after losing his sight. There was a profound connection between them. two human beings who saw the world differently than most people. On the last Friday of April, Lily did something that would forever change the dynamics of the house. She brought a different drawing. It was Leonard playing the piano, but this time he was not alone. Beside him on the piano bench was a small figure, herself, and around the two of them, all over the paper, Lily had drawn colourful musical notes floating in the air. When Angela described the drawing, Leonard felt an emotion he hadn't experienced in years. A child had included him in her vision of happiness. For Lily, joy was playing music beside him, sharing melodies in a silent world, but filled with meaning. That night, alone in his room, Leonard realized that something fundamental had changed in his life. The mansion was no longer just a silent refuge. It was a place where music had returned to exist, where small hands had brought new life to the abandoned keys, where silence had gained a new language, the language of genuine affection and true connection. May arrived with milder temperatures and a routine Leonard had never imagined possible. The music afternoons with Lily had become the highlight of his days. But it was on a Monday morning that his orderly life received its first major shock since the girl had come to his home. It was 8:30 a.m. when the phone rang. In the office, Dr. Adams was calling urgently, breaking protocol by contacting him before 9 a.m. "Leonard, we need to talk in person. It's about financial movements I discovered yesterday during the review of the statements. Can it be this morning?" The concern in the accountant's voice was evident. In 20 years of partnership, Adams had never sounded so apprehensive. "Of course, Adams. Come by when you can." While he waited, Leonard felt a growing unease. His business was thriving. The shares of Vance Biotech had appreciated by 15% in the last quarter, and Caroline had consistently presented positive reports. What could have disturbed Adams so much? At 9:15 a.m., Dr. Adams arrived accompanied by his assistant, Dr. Fernanda, a financial crime auditor who occasionally provided services for large companies in San Francisco. Her presence in the meeting set off all the alarms in Leonard's mind. "Leonard, I need to be direct with you," Adams began, his voice laden with tension. "During the routine audit I conduct monthly, I detected unauthorized transfers from the company's accounts. Significant amounts. What kind of transfers? Where to?" "They are movements to accounts in tax havens, the Cayman Islands specifically. The pattern has been repeating for 6 months, always in amounts that fall below the threshold that requires notification to the central bank." Dr. Fernanda opened her folder and began detailing the findings. "Mr. Vance, we identified 17 transfers totaling $2,400,000, all authorized with your digital signature, but made at times and dates that their records do not match your presence logged in the company system." The revelation hit Leonard like a punch to the stomach. Only 3 people had access to his digital search: himself, Dr. Adams, and Caroline. And he knew that Adams would never do something like this. "Caroline," he whispered, more to himself than to those present. "I fear that is the most logical conclusion," Adams confirmed sadly. "The transactions always happen on Tuesdays and Thursdays, exactly on the days when Caroline has full access to the company's financial system." At that moment, Leonard heard footsteps in the hallway. It was Angela, probably coming to clean the living room. But something in the situation made him pay extra attention to the sounds of the house. Lily was in the library as always, but he sensed a different agitation coming from the girl. "Gentlemen, I ask, that you maintain absolute confidentiality about this discovery until I decide how to proceed," Leonard said, his voice controlled but firm. "I need more solid evidence before confronting Caroline." "We are already preparing a complete report," Dr. Fernanda assured, "but I recommend that you take immediate preventive measures. Cancelling her access would be the first step. After Adams and Fernanda left, Leonard remained alone in the office, processing the magnitude of the betrayal. Caroline, whom he had treated like a daughter after Peter's death, was systematically stealing from the company he had built with decades of hard work. It was then that he noticed a presence in the doorway. Lily was there, standing in the doorway, clearly sensing the emotional tension emanating from him. The girl approached slowly and without warning, climbed onto his lap and rested her head on his chest, as if wanting to offer comfort without words. "She knows when you're sad," Angela said, appearing in the office doorway. Lily ran from the library as soon as she sensed something was wrong. The girl's extraordinary perception touched Leonard deeply. On a devastating morning of family discoveries, a child he had known for only 5 weeks offered the kind of emotional support he hadn't received in years. "Angela, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course, Mr. Vance." "How do you trust people after being let down?" Angela hesitated for a moment, clearly sensing the pain behind the question. "Sir, I've learned that there are good people and bad people in the world, but if we let the bad ones ruin our ability to see the good in others, they win twice. First when they hurt us, and then when they prevent us from being happy." The simple yet profound wisdom of the woman echoed in Leonard's mind throughout the day. Lily stayed longer than usual in the mansion, seeming to intuit that he needed company. She compulsively drew all afternoon, images of him surrounded by colorful figures representing protection and affection. On Wednesday, Caroline made her routine bi-weekly visit. She arrived promptly at 2 p.m., as always, bringing meticulously organized reports and a professional smile that Leonard now saw in a completely different light. "Uncle, we have great news about the Oakland lab. We managed to secure a supply contract with a chain of pharmacies in the countryside that will yield at least $300,000 a month," she announced, her voice laden with the efficiency Leonard had always admired. As Caroline detailed the numbers, he paid attention to nuances he had previously ignored. The way she spoke about money with an almost feverish enthusiasm. How she always directed the conversation toward values and figures instead of people or the larger purposes of the company. How her compliments to the employees always came with comments about costs and productivity. "Caroline, I want to personally review all financial transactions from the past few weeks," he said casually, testing her reaction. There was an almost imperceptible pause before she responded, "Of course, Uncle, I'll organize all the documents. Is there any specific concern?" "No concern. I'd just like to maintain complete control over the numbers." During the rest of the meeting, Leonard noticed signs that had previously gone unnoticed. Caroline spoke too quickly when questioned about specific details. Her explanations about certain investments were vague, filled with technical jargon that seemed designed to confuse rather than clarify. After she left, Lily appeared in the office doorway with a drawing different from the others. When Angela described it, Leonard felt a chill. Lily had drawn 2 figures, one large and small, with the large figure smiling but tears falling from its eyes. It was as if the girl had sensed the deceit he had just witnessed. "Lily feels when people aren't genuine," Angela explained. "She gets agitated around people who aren't sincere." That night, Leonard made a difficult but necessary decision. He called Adams and instructed him to immediately cancel all of Caroline's financial authorizations, citing an administrative reorganization. He also asked Dr. Fernanda to initiate a complete investigation into all transactions made by his goddaughter over the past 2 years. "I want to know exactly how long this has been happening and what the total amount involved is," he said, his voice firm despite the pain of betrayal. As he prepared for bed, he reflected on the ironies of life. He had lost his physical sight 7 years ago, but he was only now learning to truly see the people around him. A special child and her hard-working mother were teaching him about authenticity and loyalty, while the person he trusted most revealed herself to be a calculating traitor. Lily had left one last drawing on his desk before leaving. It was him playing the piano, surrounded by musical notes that formed a protective shield around him. At the bottom of the paper, she had glued small hearts cut from colored paper. Even amidst the devastating discovery about Caroline, Leonard fell asleep that night with a new feeling growing in his chest. For the first time in years, he did not feel completely alone in facing the storms of life. The first Friday of June brought a discovery that would further shake Leonard's certainties. It was noon when, while passing through the hallway connecting the kitchen to the service area, he overheard a phone conversation that would forever change his perception of Angela. "No, Marcia, you can't give up now. Your son needs this therapy," Angela said in a firm yet affectionate tone. "Look, the speech therapist at the clinic explained to me that children with autism respond very well when the family remains consistent in treatment." Leonard paused in the hallway, intrigued. The conversation continued. "I know it's financially difficult, but there are assistance programs. When Lily started her treatment, I also thought I wouldn't be able to afford it. I work as a house cleaner just to pay for her therapies. No, it's not humiliating at all. What matters is the well-being of our children." There was a pause, and then Angela continued with a touching maternal patience. "Marcia, listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you. I have a degree in education and a specialization in inclusive education. I worked for 10 years as a teacher before Lily was born. When I discovered her syndrome, I made the decision to leave my career to fully dedicate myself to her development. I don't regret it for a second." Leonard silently stepped away, his heart tight with a mix of admiration and embarrassment. For 5 weeks, he had treated Angela simply as the house cleaner, never imagining that behind that humble woman was a qualified professional who had abandoned her career out of maternal love. That afternoon, when Lily was entertained in the library and Angela finished cleaning the living room, he decided to break the protocol of distance he had maintained for years. "Angela, can we talk for a moment?" "Of course, Mr. Leonard. Is something wrong?" "Please have a seat," he said, indicating the armchair near the sofa where he was sitting. The formality of asking her to sit was unprecedented in the house. Angela hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the break in the usual hierarchy. "Sir, I'd prefer to stand. Please, sit down. I need to ask you some questions, but not as your employer, as someone who would like to get to know you better." Still hesitant, Angela settled on the edge of the armchair. "Do you want to know something about my work?" "I want to know about you," Leonard said, with a sincerity that surprised him. "Angela, are you a teacher?" The silence that followed was eloquent. Leonard sensed the tension in her breathing, as if she feared that the discovery of her qualifications might jeopardize her in some way. "I am, sir. I have a degree in education from Stanford University and a specialization in inclusive education. I worked at Santos Dumont Municipal School in the Floresta neighborhood for 10 years. Why didn't you tell me before, and why did you leave education to work as a house cleaner?" Angela took a deep breath before answering. "Mr. Leonard, when Lily was born, everything changed in my life. In the early years, we thought she was just a shy child, but at 3 years old, when we noticed she wasn't speaking like other children her age, the diagnoses began." She paused, clearly reliving painful memories. "Lily has a rare genetic syndrome that primarily affects speech and some aspects of social development. It's not autism, but it has similar characteristics. When I discovered this, I understood that she would need intensive support, speech therapy, occupational therapy, music therapy." "And her father?" My husband, Anthony, was an electrician. He died in a work accident when Lily was 4 years old. The company's insurance barely covered the funeral expenses. Her voice trembled slightly, but she continued, "Alone with Lily, I had to make a choice, continue as a teacher earning a salary that barely covered her therapies, or work as a house cleaner, which gives me more flexibility and a higher income." Leonard felt a wave of admiration and embarrassment. "Angela, forgive me for never asking about your life before. In recent years, I've become very focused on myself." "You don't need to apologize, Mr. Leonard. You've always treated me with respect. And can I say something? These 2 months working here have been special for both of us." "How so?" "Lily has never connected with someone like she has with you. At home, she talks about you every day, in her own way, of course, through gestures and drawings. She draws you playing the piano, she draws the library, she draws this house as if it were a magical place." The revelation touched Leonard deeply. "And for you, Angela? How has it been?" "For me?" She hesitated, as if fearing it might be inappropriate. "For me, it has been comforting to see Lily happy. And also, well, it's comforting to work in a place where I can use my pedagogical experience, even if indirectly. I observe how you interact with Lily, how you respect her pace, how you understand that she has a special way of communicating." At that moment, Lily appeared in the room carrying a braille book and headed straight for the piano. She began to play a gentle melody she had created the previous week, a composition she called Through Gestures to Her Mother, Happy Home Song. "Angela, can I ask a question about Lily's development?" "Of course. What is her prognosis? Will she be able to communicate verbally someday?" Angela smiled with maternal pride. "Lily understands everything perfectly. Her cognition is normal, even above average in some areas. Music therapy has helped a lot. Therapists say that music activates areas of the brain that can facilitate speech. She can already say a few words when she is very relaxed and confident." "What kind of words?" "Mommy, yes, no, thank you." "And since she started coming here," Angela smiled, "she learned to say Leo. That's what she calls you when we're at home." The emotion Leonard felt was overwhelming. A child with communication difficulties had included his name in the limited vocabulary she could express verbally. "Angela, I want to make a proposal, and to you. Not a job proposal, but a proposal for partnership." "What do you mean, sir?" "I'm thinking of creating a social project linked to Vidal Biotech. A foundation focused on children with special needs. I would like that you coordinate this project, using your background in inclusive education." Angela remained silent for long seconds, clearly processing the magnitude of the proposal. "Mr. Leonard, it's more than I ever dreamed. But I need to ask, why? Why would you do this for me?" "Because you and Lily taught me something I had forgotten. That the real value of people is not in titles or positions, but in character and dedication. You are one of the most deserving people I have ever met, Angela. And Lily," he paused, emotional, "Lily brought me back to life." At that moment, Lily stopped playing and came over to them, as if sensing the emotion in the air. She took Leonard's hand and her mother's hand, bringing them together as if it were a small union ceremony. "She does this when she wants to bring people she likes together," Angela explained, tears in her eyes. "So it's decided," said Leonard, squeezing both hands. "Let's work together to help other special children like Lily." For the first time in 7 years, Leonard Vance felt that his life had once again a purpose greater than his own fears and limitations. A courageous woman and her extraordinary daughter had not only penetrated the walls he had built around himself, but had also shown him a way back to the world through service to others and the transformative power of genuine love. The second Tuesday of June would be marked by the confrontation that Leonard had been postponing for 2 weeks. Dr. Adams had completed the full report of the investigation regarding Caroline, and the results were even more devastating than he had initially imagined. The total amount embezzled reached $4,200,000, spread over 14 months of fraudulent transactions. At 1:30 p.m., Leonard was in the office when he heard the familiar sound of Caroline's car parking in the garage. His heart raced, but a sense of determination overtook him. It was time to end years of misplaced trust. "Good afternoon, Uncle," Caroline greeted with the forced cheerfulness he now recognized as false. "I brought the second quarter reports. The numbers are fantastic." "Caroline, have a seat. We need to talk about something serious." Leonard's tone must have alerted his niece because he noticed a subtle change in her breathing. "Sure, Uncle. Did something happen?" "Something did happen. I discovered the transfers to the Cayman Islands." The silence that followed was so thick that Leonard could hear his own heartbeat. Caroline did not immediately deny it, which confirmed his worst suspicions. "Uncle, I can explain." "Then explain. Explain how you used my search to steal over $4 million from the company that my father built and that I dedicated my life to maintaining." "It wasn't theft," Caroline exploded, abandoning all pretense of cordiality. "You're blind, Leonard, literally blind. You have no idea how the market is changing, how our competitors are growing while you hide in this house." The ferocity of the verbal attack caught Leonard off guard. It was the first time in years that someone had used his blindness as a weapon against him. "Go on," he said, keeping his voice controlled. "You want the truth? Fine. I was protecting our assets, creating reserves in offshore accounts for when your outdated management finally breaks the company. Do you think you can run a 21st century biotech locked up at home, relying on third-party reports? $4 million, Caroline. $4 million that you stole. I safeguarded, and you know what? I don't regret it. When Peter died, you promised to take care of me, to be like a father. But what did you do? You used me as an employee, gave me responsibilities without real autonomy. You never saw me as a legitimate heir." Leonard felt the anger rising, but a part of his mind remained analytical, processing every word from Caroline. There were truths mixed with justifications, legitimate resentments twisted to justify crimes. "Caroline, you had full operational autonomy of the company. What you didn't have was the authorization to steal." "Steal?" she shouted, completely losing control. "I made this company grow. In the last 2 years, I increased profits by 40%. While you sit here playing the blind victim, I was building our future." It was at that moment that Lily appeared at the office door. The girl was visibly agitated, clearly disturbed by the aggressive energy that dominated the environment. She approached Leonard and held his hand, offering the silent comfort she had learned to give. "What kind of child is this?" Caroline asked disdainfully. "Now you're getting little visits during business meetings? This is Lily, Angela's daughter, and she has more dignity in her 7 years than you have demonstrated in your 35. Caroline laughed bitterly. "Of course. The great Leonard Vance replaced family with a housekeeper and her disabled daughter. How touching." The cruelty of the comment about Lily was the last straw. Leonard stood up, his voice laden with an authority he hadn't shown in years. "Get out of my house now! Uncle, listen to me! Get out of my house!" he roared, making Lily shrink against him. "You are fired from all positions in the company. Your credentials have been revoked. And by the end of the week, I want the $4 million returned, or you will face criminal charges for embezzlement. You can't fire me. I have rights as an heir." "You haven't inherited anything yet, Caroline, and after what I discovered, I can guarantee you will inherit nothing ever." What happened next was revealing of Caroline's true character. Instead of trying to apologize or show remorse, she launched into the lowest possible attack. "You know what, Leonard? My father always said you were weak, that you hid behind the family business your whole life because you didn't have the courage to build anything on your own. And look at you. It took being blind for you to become a pathetic hermit." "Angela!" Leonard shouted. "Call the doorman to escort Mrs. Caroline to the exit. You will regret this, uncle. Without me, this company will sink in 2 years. And when that happens, don't come looking for me." Caroline stormed out, slamming the office door violently. Leonard stood there, trembling with rage and adrenaline. Lily continued to cling to his hand like a small anchor amidst the emotional storm. "Mr. Leonard, are you okay?" asked Angela, appearing at the door with evident concern in her voice. "I am, Angela. Caroline will no longer work here, and I would like you and Lily to stay for dinner tonight. I need company after that." Conversation. During dinner, the first in 7 years that Leonard didn't have alone, Lily was particularly affectionate. She had drawn a new portrait of him, but this time surrounded by protective figures that Angela identified as colourful guardian angels. "Lily was worried about you after that argument," Angela explained. "She doesn't understand the words, but she feels when someone is being cruel. And how is she dealing with it?" She drew the lady who was shouting surrounded by dark clouds, and she drew you surrounded by golden light. Lily sees kindness and evil very clearly. That night, after Angela and Lily left, Leonard called Dr. Adams and recounted the entire confrontation. He decided he would indeed file a criminal lawsuit against Caroline, but primarily wanted to focus on completely restructuring the management of the company. "Adams, I want to hire a new executive team, and I want to implement the foundation project for special children as soon as possible. I have a new coordinator in mind." "Leonard, can I say something? In the 2 decades I've worked with you, I've never seen you so determined. This situation with Caroline, as painful as it is, seems to have awakened you." It was true. Caroline's betrayal had paradoxically freed Leonard from years of emotional paralysis. For the first time since the accident, he felt in control of his life, making important decisions driven not by fear, but by renewed purpose. Before going to bed, he found on his desk the last drawing Lily had made. It was him standing with arms wide open, and around him flew colourful butterflies emerging from a dark cocoon. A 7-year-old had perfectly captured the moment of transformation he was going through. Caroline's betrayal had hurt deeply, but it had also clarified something fundamental. The people who truly mattered in his life were not those connected to him by blood or financial interest, but those who chose to be by his side out of genuine affection and true loyalty. The end of June brought with it the characteristic aroma of summer festivals that took over San Francisco. It was Thursday, June 24th, the eve of St. John's Day, when Angela arrived at the mansion carrying a thermal bag that exuded irresistible scents of cinnamon, cloves, and fresh corn. "Mr. Leonard, I brought some typical treats for the season," she announced with contained enthusiasm, clearly testing the limits of the formality that still marked their relationship. "I thought you might like to try." Leonard, who was in the library mentally organizing the contracts for the new executive team, felt a wave of nostalgia hit him when the aroma reached his nostrils. It had been years since he had smelled the authentic scent of homemade summer festival foods. "What did you bring?" he asked, genuinely curious. "I made corn cake with coconut, peanut brittle, sweet corn pudding, and a non-alcoholic spiced apple cider for Lily to enjoy as well," Angela explained, her voice filled with the pride of someone who knew how to cook masterfully. Lily came running from the living room, where she had been drawing, and went straight to Leonard. She took his hand and pulled him toward the kitchen, clearly excited to share the treats her mother had brought. In the kitchen, Angela had arranged everything on the granite countertop, plates with warm delicacies, mugs for the steaming spiced apple cider, and paper napkins decorated with summer festival motifs that Lily had chosen especially. "Mr. Leonard, if you don't mind, I would like you to try the corn cake first. It's my grandmother's recipe from Springfield," Angela said, cutting a generous slice of the golden, fragrant delicacy. When Leonard took the first bite, it was as if a time machine had instantly transported him back to his paternal grandparents' farm, where he spent his school vacations. The authentic flavor of fresh corn mixed with coconut and perfectly seasoned with cinnamon awakened memories he thought were lost forever. "My God, Angela, it's been years since I've had real corn cake," he said, clearly moved. "This reminds me of my grandfather John's farm in Springfield." "You know Springfield?" Angela asked, excited. "That's where my family is from. My grandparents had a small property in the rural area of the city. I spent all my childhood vacations there. My grandfather had a cattle farm and grew corn. I loved helping with the harvest, especially during the summer festival season." Lily, sensing that the conversation was pleasant, took Leonard's hand and guided it to the mug of spiced apple cider. The warm liquid, fragrant with ginger and cloves, brought even more affectionate memories. It was as if, through the authentically festive flavors, a part of his identity that had been dormant was awakening. "Can I tell you something, Mr. Leonard?" Angela said, pouring some spiced apple cider for Lily in a smaller mug. "When I started working here, I thought you were a very serious and distant person, but observing how you treat Lily, how you respect her way of being, I saw that you are actually a big-hearted person who was just protected by a lot of sadness." The observation touched Leonard deeply. "You're right, Angela. I hid for so long that I almost forgot who I was before the accident." Lily, who had finished her spiced apple cider, approached the grand piano and began to play a melody that vaguely resembled typical summer festival songs, but with a completely unique arrangement. It was as if she was creating a soundtrack for that special moment. "She is playing party music," Angela translated affectionately. "That's how Lily refers to the melodies she creates when she's happy." At that moment, Leonard made a decision that surprised even himself. "Angela, how about we organize a small summer barbecue here at home on Saturday? It's been so long since this house hosted a celebration." Angela's eyes lit up. "That would be wonderful. I can bring more typical foods. We can decorate the garden. And we can invite some people. Dr. Adams and his family, a few close employees from the company. What do you think?" "I think that would be perfect. Lily would love it. She has never been to a real summer barbecue. It's always just been the two of us celebrating at home." Over the next 2 days, the mansion transformed completely. Angela arrived earlier and stayed later, organizing decorations with colorful banners in the garden, preparing generous amounts of treats, and teaching Lily how to make paper banners to decorate the living room. Leonard got involved in the organization with an enthusiasm he hadn't felt in years. He had a small stage installed in the garden for musical performances, hired a traditional accordion player to play typical songs, and even decided to open the 3rd floor of the mansion, an area that had remained closed since the accident. On the morning of Saturday, June 26, the house was unrecognizable. The front garden had a rustic yet elegant decoration, with wooden tables set up under the century-old trees, colorful banners hanging between the branches of the jacaranda trees, and an improvised wood-burning stove where Angela roasted corn on the cob and prepared spiced apple cider for the guests. "Mr. Leonard, you're experiencing this through the smells and sounds, aren't you?" Angela asked when he stepped out into the garden that morning. "The smell of roasting corn, the noise of people setting everything up, it's as if the house is breathing again." She was right. For the first time in 7 years, the mansion was alive. There were cheerful voices, laughter, the sound of chairs being arranged, and soft background music playing. It was as if the very physical space was waking up from a long hibernation. Lily was radiant. She wore a special dress that Angela had made for the occasion and carried a small toy accordion that she played with surprising skill. She had spent the entire morning running around the garden, overseeing every detail of the decoration with the seriousness of a little event planner. At 3 p.m., the first guests began to arrive. Dr. Adams came with his wife, Mrs. Laura, and their 2 teenage children. Some employees from the Vance Biotech management also attended, bringing their families. To Leonard's surprise, even a few neighbors he had lost contact with showed up, drawn by the festive atmosphere that had taken over the property. "Leonard, how many years has it been since I've seen you like this?" Dr. Adams remarked, clearly moved by his friend's transformation. "It seems like you've become the person I knew 20 years ago." The barbecue was an absolute success. The accordion player played classics while the children present enjoyed the fishing game and ran around the garden. Lily quickly became the little host of the party, guiding the other boys and girls to the piano for small, improvised recitals. But the most emotional moment of the afternoon happened when Lily, encouraged by her mother, approached the microphone on the small stage, and for the first time in the presence of others besides Leonard and Angela, spoke a few clearly audible words. "Thank you, Mr. Leo. Happy home." The entire garden fell silent for a few seconds, and then erupted into warm applause. Leonard felt tears streaming down his face, tears of joy and pride for that extraordinary girl who had transformed his life. When the party ended, late in the afternoon, Leonard sat on the garden bench where he used to sit when he could still see. Angela approached and sat beside him, while Lily played with the last colourful balloons. "Thank you, Angela. Thank you for bringing back the joy of living." "It wasn't me, Mr. Leonard. It was you who chose to open your heart. Lily and I were just here when you decided you were ready to be happy again." That night, alone in his room, Leonard reflected on how drastically his life had changed in 2 months. The house that had once been a silent tomb had transformed into a true home, full of life, laughter, and genuine love. The summer barbecues of 2024 would forever be marked as the moment Leonard Vance rediscovered that the true wealth of life is not in what we possess, but in the people we choose to share our journey with. July arrived, carrying cold winds and news that would shake the foundations of the apparent tranquility Leonard had found. It was a rainy Monday, July 5th, when Dr. Adams arrived at the mansion with a serious expression that Leonard could only detect by the tone of his voice. "Leonard, we need to talk about something urgent. Caroline has filed a lawsuit questioning your ability to manage the company," Adams announced bluntly, his voice heavy with concern. The shock was immediate. "What do you mean, questioning my ability?" "She claimed in the lawsuit that your blindness compromises your ability to make sound business decisions. She is requesting the appointment of a judicial administrator for Vance Biotech, arguing that the company is being managed by a person with severe visual impairment and pathological social isolation." Leonard felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. "Is she using my blindness against me?" "Worse than that. Caroline attached old medical reports about your psychological state after the accident and hired an expert who asserts that people with visual impairments should not manage large companies without constant supervision." The cruelty of Caroline's strategy was devastating. She had turned his physical condition into a legal weapon to try to take control of the company he had built. "Adams, is this even possible? Legally? Unfortunately, that is a possibility. The judge can appoint an expert to assess your cognitive ability and competence to manage business affairs. The case is currently in the 4th Civil Court, and the judge is known for being conservative regarding disability issues." At that moment, Leonard heard familiar footsteps in the hallway. Angela and Lily had arrived, but he realized it would be impossible to hide his anguish from the girl, who had a keen perception for sensing emotional states. "Dr. Adams, can we continue this conversation in the office? I don't want Lily to witness this." In the office, Adams detailed the gravity of the situation. "Caroline is being advised by a firm specializing in business disputes. They found a legal loophole that allows questioning management capacity based on subsequent incapacity. It's a law designed for cases of senile dementia or severe mental health issues, but they are trying to apply it to your case. What chances do we have to reverse this? We need to prove not only that you are mentally capable, but that the company has thrived under your leadership in the years following the accident. Fortunately, we have excellent numbers to back this up. In the following days, the pressure was intense. Trade journals began reporting on the case, insinuating that Vance Biotech might be mismanaged by a reclusive businessman with visual impairment. The company's stock began to fluctuate, and some clients expressed concern. Lily, with her extraordinary sensitivity, immediately sensed that something was wrong. She began compulsively drawing dark figures, storms, and images of Leonard surrounded by dark clouds. During the afternoon music sessions, she played melancholic melodies that reflected the tension dominating the house. "Mr. Leonard, can I say something?" Angela said one Thursday afternoon while Lily was drawing in the library. "Of course, Angela. I know it's not my place to interfere in your legal matters, but is this case about your blindness? It's about Caroline claiming that my blindness prevents me from managing the company properly." Angela fell silent for a few seconds, clearly processing the information. When she spoke again, her voice carried a contained indignation. "Mr. Leonard, can I tell you what I've seen in these months working here?" "Go ahead." "I've seen a man who runs a multi-million-dollar company from memory, who makes complex decisions based on reports he processes with impressive precision. I've seen someone who understands aspects of inclusive education that many sighted teachers do not grasp. I've seen a man who connected with my daughter in a way that no therapist ever could." She paused, and Leonard sensed the emotion rising in her voice. "Do you want to know what else I've seen? I've seen a man hiding from the world, not because of blindness, but because of pain. And in the past few months, I've seen that same man choose to live again. That is not incapacity, Mr. Leonard. That is strength." Angela's words touched Leonard deeply, but they also made him reflect on a possibility he hadn't considered. Perhaps Caroline was right in one aspect. Maybe he had indeed isolated himself too much, creating a public perception of fragility that was now being used against him. "Angela, do you think I should appear more publicly? Show that I'm not the recluse she's painting me to be? I think you should do what you feel is right. But can I make a suggestion?" "Sure. How about launching that foundation project for special needs children? Show the world that you can not only run a company but are also using it for good." The idea was brilliant. Leonard had been planning the foundation for weeks, but now he saw it as an opportunity to publicly demonstrate his leadership ability and social vision. That Friday, he made a decision that surprised even Dr. Adams. "I want to organize a press conference to announce the creation of the Vance Foundation for Special Needs Children. And I want Angela to be introduced as the educational coordinator of the project." "Leonard, are you sure? The press will question your decision to hire a former housekeeper for a coordinating position." "Let them question. Angela has a degree in pedagogy and a specialization in inclusive education. If they question her hiring, they will be questioning competence based on class prejudice, just as Caroline is doing with me, based on prejudice against disability." Over the weekend, Leonard and his team meticulously prepared for the press conference. It would take place the following Monday in the auditorium of Vance Biotech headquarters, the first time Leonard would step into the building since the accident. "Mr. Leonard, can I bring Lily to the conference?" Angela asked on Sunday afternoon. "She is the inspiration behind all of this." "Of course. In fact, I think Lily should participate in the presentation. How about she plays piano during the event?" Lily, upon hearing the proposal through her mother's gestures, beamed with joy. She spent the entire Sunday rehearsing a special composition, a piece she called Hope, that she had created especially for Mr. Leo. The night before the conference, Leonard was as nervous as he hadn't been in years. It would be his first public event since the accident, and he knew reporters would ask tough questions about his leadership ability. Lily appeared in his office carrying a new drawing. When Angela described it, Leonard felt a wave of emotion. It was him standing on a stage, surrounded by smiling children, with golden musical notes flying around him. In the upper corner of the paper, Lily had written in uncertain but legible letters, "Leo Strong." "How did she learn to write my name?" he asked, touched. "She's been practicing for weeks. She wants to show everyone that Mr. Leo is special." That night, for the first time in 7 years, Leonard Vance fell asleep, anxious not out of fear, but out of expectation. The next day, he would face the world again, not as a man diminished by blindness, but as a leader with renewed purpose, accompanied by a courageous woman and an extraordinary girl who... On a Monday morning, July 12th, the day dawned clear and cold, typical of a winter's day in San Francisco. Leonard woke up at 5:30 a.m., 2 hours earlier than usual, with a mix of nervousness and determination that he hadn't felt since before the accident. It would be his first public event in 7 years, and he knew that every word, every gesture would be scrutinized by reporters looking for signs of weakness. At 7 a.m., Angela and Lily arrived earlier than usual. The girl was dressed in a navy blue dress specially chosen for the occasion and carried her sketchbook along with music sheets she had prepared for the musical presentation. "Mr. Leonard, how are you feeling?" Angela asked, clearly noticing his anxiety. "Nervous but determined. It's been a long time since I faced cameras and microphones." Lily approached him and placed a small object in his hands. It was a keychain shaped like a musical note that she had made in art class, with a tag that read "Courage" in colorful letters. "She wants you to take this for good luck," Angela translated with a smile in her voice. At 8:30 a.m., the official car from Vance Biotech arrived to pick them up. It was the first time Leonard would return to the company headquarters since the accident. During the 20-minute drive through the morning traffic of San Francisco, he mentally recalled every detail of the building he had personally designed 15 years earlier. "We've arrived, Mr. Leonard," announced the driver as they parked in front of the 12-story mirrored glass building that housed Vance Biotech. When he got out of the car, Leonard was greeted by Dr. Adams and the new communications director, Marcia Tavares, an experienced journalist who had been hired specifically to manage the image crisis created by Caroline's lawsuit. "Leonard, the auditorium is packed. We have reporters from Globo, Band, SBT, Record, as well as the major newspapers from California," Marcia informed. "We estimate around 40 media professionals." As they took the elevator to the auditorium on the 8th floor, Leonard felt a wave of memories. The familiar smell of the building, the sound of the elevators, the voices of Maplewood staff greeting him with a mix of respect and curiosity. Many hadn't seen him in person for years. "Daddy, can I hold your hand?" Lily whispered, using one of the rare words she could pronounce clearly. The question touched Leonard deeply. Lily had never used the word daddy with him before. "Of course, little one," he replied, holding her tiny hand tightly. In the auditorium, the activity was intense. Cameras were being positioned, microphones tested, and Leonard could hear the buzz of reporters talking among themselves. Some comments reached him. This is his first public appearance since the accident. They say he's become a recluse. Let's see if he's really fit to run a company of this size. At 10 a.m., the press conference began. Leonard walked confidently and determinedly onto the stage, with Lily at his right side and Angela on his left. The symbolism of the image did not go unnoticed. A confident businessman accompanied by a special child and a dedicated educator. Good morning. My name is Leonard Vance. I am the CEO and founder of Vance Biotech. After 7 years focusing exclusively on the technical management of the company, I am here today to announce a new phase for our company, the creation of the Vance Foundation for Children with Special Needs. His voice was firm, clear, without hesitation. The reporters fell into absolute silence. In recent months, I have had the opportunity to interact with extraordinary people who have shown me that disability does not mean limitation, but rather a different and often superior way of seeing the world. I would like to introduce Lily Smith, 7 years old, who will be our first ambassador for the foundation, and her mother, Angela Smith, an educator specialized in inclusive education, who will take over the coordination of the project. Lily, following the script they had rehearsed, walked over to the piano that had been positioned on stage and began to play. Her composition, Hope. The soft and touching melody echoed through the silent auditorium, and Leonard could hear some emotional sighs coming from the audience. When the music ended, the applause was warm and prolonged. Lily took a small bow and returned to Leonard's side, clearly proud of her performance. The Vance Foundation will initially invest $5 million in projects for inclusive education, specialized therapies, and research on child development. Our goal is to serve 500 children with special needs in the first 2 years, Leonard continued, presenting concrete data and specific goals. Then came the most challenging part, the question and answer session. The first reporter went straight to the point. Mr. Vance, your niece has filed a lawsuit claiming that your visual impairment compromises your ability to manage the company. What do you have to say about that? Leonard took a deep breath before responding. In the last 7 years, our company has grown by 180%. We have developed 17 new patents, and we have become the second largest biotech company in the country. If this is the result of incapacity, I can only imagine how our performance would be if I were capable. Discreet laughter echoed through the auditorium. Furthermore, he continued, I would like to take this opportunity to clarify something. I lost my sight, not my intelligence. I manage the company using assistive technologies, detailed reports, and an extremely competent team. Steve Jobs was dyslexic, and that didn't stop him from revolutionizing global technology. A reporter from Globo asked the next question. Mr. Vance, there are rumors that you have become a recluse after the accident. How do you explain this change in behavior? It's true that I withdrew from social life after the accident, not due to incapacity, but due to mourning. I lost not only my sight, but my wife had also passed away a few years before. It was a period of personal reconstruction, but as you can see today, I chose to return to the world, motivated by a greater purpose. Angela was asked about her qualifications to coordinate the foundation. Miss Smith, do you have experience in managing non-profit organizations? I have a degree in education from Stanford University and I specialize in inclusive education. I worked for 10 years as a teacher before dedicating myself entirely to the development of my daughter. My qualification comes not only from academic training, but from the real experience of raising a child with special needs and understanding the difficulties families face. The most touching question came from a young reporter. Lily, can you play one more song for us? Lily looked at Leonard, who nodded encouragingly. She returned to the piano and played Für Elise, the same song she had learned by listening to Leonard play months before. The performance was perfect, showcasing her extraordinary musical talent. When the presentation ended, the auditorium erupted in enthusiastic applause. Several reporters approached for individual interviews, and Leonard could see that the perception had completely changed. "Mr. Leonard," said the reporter from Record, "after seeing you here today, it's hard to understand how anyone could question your leadership ability." During the afternoon, the first results of the strategy were already showing. Vance Biotech's stock rose 12% on the market, and the company received dozens of calls from investors interested in supporting the foundation. More importantly, the public narrative had shifted from disabled businessman to visionary leader with a social purpose. That night, back at the mansion, Leonard, Angela, and Lily celebrated with a special dinner prepared by Mrs. Johnson. Lily had received an improvised small trophy from one of the reporters, made with a pen and paper with the words, "Best Young Pianist in San Francisco." "Mr. Leonard," Angela said, while Lily played with her trophy, "what happened today was more than a press conference. It was a statement that special people, whether adults or children, have much to contribute to the world. Angela, can I confess something? Today was the day I finally stopped seeing myself as a person diminished by blindness. For the first time in 7 years, I felt whole again." Lily approached the two and handed Leonard her last drawing of the day. It was him on stage, standing and smiling, with a golden crown on his head and surrounded by happy children. In the corner of the paper, she had written in fancy letters, "My hero." That night, Leonard fell asleep knowing he had completed a crucial step in his journey back to the world. But more importantly, he had discovered that his true strength did not come from overcoming blindness, but from using his experiences to help others overcome their own limitations. Caroline's case was still in the courts, but now Leonard had something he hadn't had before: a public narrative of competence, purpose, and leadership that would be very difficult to contest. 3 weeks after the press conference, on a sunny August morning, Leonard received the call he had been waiting for months. Dr. Adams called with a voice full of satisfaction. "Leonard, I just received the court decision. Caroline's case has been completely dismissed. The judge found no evidence of incapacity on your part and also ordered her to return all misappropriated funds under penalty of imprisonment." The news brought relief but not surprise. Since the press conference, public support for Leonard had been massive. Business people, politicians, and organizations for people with disabilities had rallied to his defense, turning Caroline from accuser to a symbol of prejudice and greed. "Adams, is there any news about the return of the money?" "She has already started the transfers." Apparently her husband, who was unaware of the scheme, was horrified when he found out and is pressuring her to fully cooperate with the justice. While talking to Adams, Leonard heard Lily playing piano in the living room. There was something different in her music today, more cheerful, more confident. It was as if the girl sensed that a difficult phase had passed. "Mr. Leonard," Angela said, appearing at the office door after he finished the call, "I have an important piece of news to share." "What kind of news?" "Lily has started to speak more. Last night at home, she said a complete sentence for the first time. 'Mommy, I love Mr. Leonard like Daddy.'" The revelation deeply moved Leonard. During the 5 months of living together, his relationship with Lily had evolved from mutual curiosity to genuine paternal affection. "Angela, can I ask a personal question?" "Of course. Have you thought about, starting a new family? Don't get me wrong, but you are a young, intelligent, dedicated woman. Lily also deserves to have a father figure in her life." Angela was silent for a few seconds before responding with touching sincerity. "Mr. Leonard, I'll be honest. Since my husband passed away, I have never been able to imagine another man being part of our lives. But in recent months, well, watching how you care for Lily, how you worry about her, how you make her smile, sometimes I find myself thinking that maybe Lily has already found that father figure. The confession hung in the air like an unspoken possibility, but clearly present in both their hearts. That weekend, Leonard made the most important decision of his life since the accident. He called Angela for a formal conversation in the library where everything had started months before. "Angela, I want to make a proposal to you and Lily, a proposal that goes far beyond work. I'm listening. I would like you both to move here permanently, not as an employee and dependent, but as family. I want to officially adopt Lily, and I want you to agree to marry me." The silence that followed was filled with emotion. Leonard could hear Angela's shaky breath, clearly processing the magnitude of the proposal. "Mr. Leonard, is this what you really want? Angela, in the last 5 months you both have turned my house into a true home. Lily has taught me to see with my heart, and you have shown me that it is possible to rebuild life even after the greatest losses. I can no longer imagine my existence without both of you. And Lily, does she have a voice in this decision?" As if she had heard her name. One day Lily appeared in the library carrying a drawing. It was a representation of a family, a man, a woman and a girl, all holding hands in front of a big house with red hearts flying around. "She drew this morning," explained Angela, her voice trembling with emotion. "Without me asking, without suggestion. Lily has a way of capturing people's feelings that sometimes is unsettling." Lily approached Leonard, and to everyone's surprise, spoke with a clarity she hadn't shown before. "Daddy Leo, Mummy, family together?" The innocent question from the girl was the answer everyone needed to hear. "Yes, my little one," Leonard said, kneeling to be at her level. "Family together forever." The wedding ceremony took place 2 months later in October, in the mansion garden decorated with spring flowers. It was an intimate celebration, with about 50 guests, including employees from the company, neighbors who had reconnected with the family, and several families of special needs, children who were already benefiting from the Vance Foundation. Lily was the bridesmaid, wearing a white dress with blue accents that she had chosen herself. During the ceremony, she played a special composition she had created for the occasion, a music that translated into notes the joy of seeing her family finally complete. "Leonard Vance," said the Justice of the Peace during the ceremony, "do you take Angela Smith as your wife, to love and respect her in health and in sickness, in prosperity and in adversity?" "I do, with all my heart," Leonard replied, his voice firm and emotional. "Angela Smith, do you take Leonard Vance as your husband, to love and respect him in health and in sickness, in prosperity and in adversity?" "I do," Angela said, squeezing his hand tightly. When they were declared an officially married couple, Lily ran to them and hugged them both, shouting with joy, "Family! Real family!" The following months brought even deeper transformations. Lily's adoption was formalized in December in a ceremony where she signed the document in neat letters alongside her musical signature, a carefully drawn treble clef. The Vance Foundation thrived beyond expectations. In its first year, it served over 800 special needs children, offering everything from specialized therapies to school inclusion programs. Lily became a little ambassador for the project, participating in events and demonstrating through her musical performances that special needs children have extraordinary potential. Caroline, after fully returning the misappropriated funds, moved abroad, definitively severing ties with the Vance family. Leonard never knew if he felt relief or sadness over this final break, but he understood that some people are incapable of finding happiness in the success of others. One December afternoon, a year after it all began, Leonard was sitting in the garden, watching Lily play with other special needs children who had come for a Christmas party hosted by the foundation. Angela approached and sat beside him. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, intertwining her fingers with his. "I'm thinking about how ironic life is. I spent 7 years believing I had lost everything in the accident, but in reality it was only when I lost my sight that I truly learned to see." "See what?" "That happiness is not in the things we own or the skills we have, but in the connections we create. Lily taught me that true communication happens in the heart, not just in words. You taught me that strength comes from vulnerability, and that accepting help is not a sign of weakness, but of wisdom." At that moment, Lily ran to them carrying her latest drawing. It was the Vance family, now officially made up of 3 people in front of the mansion, but this time the house was filled with other smiling children coming out of the windows and doors, as if the love of the family had overflowed to embrace the whole world. "Daddy Leo," Lily said, her speech now much clearer after months of intensive therapy, "I drew our big family." "Our big family," Leonard repeated, understanding that Lily had perfectly captured what the foundation represented, the extension of family love to all children in need. When night fell and the guests departed, the Vance family gathered in the living room. Lily played piano, while Leonard and Angela discussed plans for the following year, expanding the foundation to other cities, creating a research center on child development, perhaps even writing a book about their experiences. "Angela," Leonard said before they went upstairs to sleep, "thank you for turning my house into a home." "Thank you for turning our life into a real fairy tale," she replied, kissing him gently. Lily, already in her pajamas, approached them and handed Leonard a small folded paper. When he opened it, Angela read aloud, "Daddy Leo, you are not blind. You see with your heart. I love you. Lily." That night, Leonard Vance fell asleep for the first time in 8 years, completely at peace with himself and the world. He had discovered that true wealth was not in the digits of his bank account, but in the ability to love and be loved unconditionally. The mansion in the neighborhood was no longer a fortress of silence and resentment. It was a home where music echoed through the halls, where children's laughter filled the gardens, and where a man who had lost his sight found a new way to see life, through the eyes of love. And every afternoon, when Lily played piano in the living room, Leonard remembered his father's words, engraved on the Austrian watch that still marked the hours on the wall. "Time is the only asset we cannot buy back." But now he knew it was not just about time. It was about how we choose to fill it with love, purpose, and true connections. The story of Leonard, Angela, and Lily proved that sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as challenges. And that true vision does not require functional eyes. It only requires a heart willing to love unconditionally. Please give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and if you watched until now, comment "I watched until now" and share your opinion about this story. Oh, and don't forget to watch the next video that appears on the final screen. It's very exciting.